Hello sweetheart, this is Chef Cheska Abena and welcome to my episode of Baking One-on-One, the Science of Macarons. So what is macaron? Macarons are very delicate and exquisite cookie that is made of 2 layers of almond cookies with creamy filling inside. Filling is very flexible. You can actually use chocolate ganache, fruit purees, or various types of buttercream. While there are only 4 major ingredients that make up a macaron recipe, there are so many variations across books, blogs, and even magazines. The fundamental distinction among these recipes is that of French meringue versus Italian meringue. The Italian meringue consists of a sugar syrup that is created through bringing sugar to a boil with water to create a hot syrup which is drizzled into the egg white as they beat into a meringue, producing a glossier and more stable foam. The French meringue, on the other hand, does not require unheating the sugar. Egg whites are beaten until foamy and granulated sugar is slowly incorporated as the white continues to get beaten until it forms a stable meringue. And the challenge for making these cookies perfectly, it's the shells. These shells are very delicate. The outside is just crisp, whereas the inside is slightly soft. A perfect cookie is pretty flat on top, allowing it to lie horizontally, and it has a smooth top curve-like dome on the sides. Bottom of these sides of the macaron, they have what they called a fit, or a bubbly layer of meringue. So for today, we're gonna focus on how to create a perfect foolproof macaron shells. And let's first discuss the ingredients. First, we're using almond flour for the base of the macaron. Almond flour consists of a very large amount of fat, which is not good for a meringue or an egg white foam. That's why actually we use a very fine almond flour. The almond flour won't actually dissolve into foam. Instead, it will be just in between all those air bubbles. For this reason also, it is recommended to use a food processor to make sure that your almond flour are very fine. The next ingredient is the icing sugar. Icing sugar is not just more than a finely granulated sugar. We want these small particles because icing sugar dissolves within your egg whites meringue. Again, it contributes in a smooth foam and a smooth puff macaron shell. The third and fourth ingredients is the sugar and the egg white, which forms the meringue. First step to do the macaron is to create your meringue. Meringue is a treat of foam, which is a gas liquid colloidal suspension, which is somehow similar to emulsion. And sugar in your macaron shells contribute not only the flavor, but also the structure. Another critical step in making macaron shells is the beating of egg whites to form a medium stiff thick meringue. Let's discuss what happens when you are whipping your egg whites. When you are whipping up egg whites, you're slowly unraveling the proteins inside an egg whites. Whipping proteins cause them to denature or break down. As the proteins break down, they surround the air molecules. Those are stabilized by denatured proteins. And sugar allows the proteins to create a strong gap around the molecule, and the proteins interact to create a structure. You need to whip the meringue until it doubles in size and bright white shiny. And of course, the characteristic of a beautiful gloss and structure, it is because of the sugar. And be careful not to overmix your meringue. This would overwork the protein and cause water to leach out of the matrix you just created. If water is not held in the matrix, it will evaporate in the oven and cause cracks in your beautiful cookie shells. On the other hand, undermixing meringue will not create enough structure or network, and as a result, your shell will be flat. And of course, do not allow any egg yolk in your egg whites because this will interrupt the protein matrix. You can actually check out my baking one-on-one on how to master a perfect meringue for more tips and techniques. So I'll be dropping down the link on my description box and check it out. And now that the meringue are ready, it's now time to fold that meringue into your dry ingredients. And be sure that all your dry ingredients are sifted, or better yet, has passed through a fruit processor to ensure that almond powder and icing sugar are very fine. And this will ensure your shell to be smooth. This is called macaronage. Pour in 1/4 of your meringue into the dry ingredients and begin to mix it in painting motion. This stage, we want to get out any large air bubbles into the butter. After incorporation, fold in the other half of meringue. Fold from the bottom, up and over. And in this stage, you have to make sure that you're only folding the meringue and not mixing it. Move the spatula in a circular motion, bringing butter underneath to the macaron. Butter is not too thick nor too runny. It is more like a thick but pourable cake batter. You will know when it's ready when it has a lava-like consistency, forming a thick ribbon that slowly blends back into itself when drizzled from your spatula. This step is really critical for creating a smooth and full shells. So the next is, it's time to bite. The meringue batter is actually quite special. It will be liquid enough to create a flat top, however, it won't and should not run down into a puddle. All the previous steps are such to create this ideal flow behavior. From meringue consistency down to your dried ingredients, up to the macaronage, step has to be just right. So when you are piping, you have to hold the bag straight up and apply constant pressure. You can use Macaroon stencils or template to help you with the placement. It should be about 1 inch of spacing. When you are finishing the piping motion, you have to stop squeezing the bag and pull up with a circular motion. After piping, you have to get out all the last bubbles out. You can do this by tapping the bottom of the cookie tray and dropping it forcefully onto the countertop. Have to remember, if these air packets stay in, they tend to break in the oven and cause holes on lumpy macaron.
After piping it, the next thing you have to know if it is resting time or baking it right away.
Some of the recipe requires baking the shell immediately, but if your recipe calls for drying time, you have to let your macaroon shells dry before baking it. You can check out my recipe of a foolproof macaroon on my YouTube blog. This recipe actually needs a drying time, but what I use usually at work doesn't need a drying time, especially when I do a chocolate macaron. So I suggest that you do not preheat your oven too early, because ideally it may take about 15 to 30 minutes for the skin to form. In a very humid place like Philippines, it might take up to 45 minutes. So you should be able to touch the shell and feel the dry surface. So, baking time! Temperature and baking time depends actually on your oven and the distribution of the heat of your oven. Well, because we all know that all ovens behave differently. I use different temperatures when I do macarons at work and when I do macarons at home. You will know when the macarons are done when the shell don't nubble when you move. Keep an eye on the cookies in the oven because sometimes you have to rotate the pan halfway through. The cookies should easily peel off the parchment paper and should not be hollow. If the shells are hollow, they are not yet done. So what happened during the baking process? Do you remember the air stabilized in the meringue by protein? This air actually allows the cookie to rise and create a fit. Again, this is the importance and why you should pay attention with the meringue stage. Low temperature oven prevent feet from forming, while high temperature can cause the feet too large with a little rise on the shell. Your macarons must not change the color when you put it inside the oven. If it's changed the color, it means that your oven is too hot. And high oven often cause a cracked macarons. And last thing, do not peel off immediately the macarons when you take it out of the oven. You have to let it cool down completely before peeling it off. And the most exciting and easiest part is filling your macaron with your favorite ganache, buttercream, or even some jams. So the macaron will be best to serve after 2 to 3 days of resting in the fridge. They're best stored in an airtight container inside the fridge to keep them from drying. Thank you guys for watching and I hope to see you on my next Baking 101 here on my YouTube channel. For more tips and techniques and exciting videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Coeur. Hit the notification bell so you can get notified whenever I have new videos and voila! I'll see you around! These beauties are extremely finicky and they are well known for the trouble they give with pastry chef in the kitchen, including me. After a decade of making macarons successfully, suddenly there is this one day that it just won't happen. There is no magic formula in making a perfect macaron. It's often the little things that we don't know that can make a difference. Anything from the weather to the oven to your meringue folding technique, all of these are very critical and crucial in making your macaron. That is why the most important thing about macaron is not the magic formula, but these tips and techniques that I am sharing to you that can be helpful whenever you need it. Making a macaron is trial and error. You have to practice and practice and practice and practice. Be conscious enough on how you make the step-by-step procedure so the next time you will do it and there is a problem, you know where you have to adjust. Whether you're making macarons for your family, friends, or for business, I am hoping that these tips and techniques that I'm sharing with you can help you somehow and can wipe out your fears on creating a macaron. That's it for today, sweetheart. And of course, if you do have some questions, please comment down below and we'll be glad to answer. I want to suggest some topics that I can discuss on my Baking 101. Please feel free to comment down. And again, this is me, Chef Cheska saying, As long as you know how to bake, life is sure to be sweet because life is what you bake of it. Sweetheart, hand in hand, let's make the world a better place. So, bye!